Welcome, everyone. We have a few visitors with us today, which I'm glad to see. I want to call to order the North Topsail Beach Board of Aldermen special meeting for our budget workshop and also our public hearing and presentation. So the first item on the agenda would be the approval of the agenda. And the one thing I would like to do is make a motion with this for the board to consider to postpone the continuing business regarding the beach nourishment project to a later meeting when we can discuss our beach plan.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the agenda with the change to remove item 5, continuing business.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to just go right into our budget workshop, and I believe this will be both Ms. Darian and our finance director.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. The draft budget we're presenting today has been slightly amended since our previous budget workshop that was held on April 19th. The proposed draft is a balanced budget that maintains our current tax rate of 43 cents per $100 valuation. The budget is conservative and fiscally sound, boasting a contingency fund that has more than doubled over last fiscal year's budget and places North Topsail Beach in a sound financial condition. Noteworthy condition or changes include, Ricky, can you go through the next slide?
Or not.
There you go. So the first noteworthy change is the addition of the $100,000 in capital improvement fund for the bike lane project. It's a possible project with NCDOT. We're currently coming to an agreement now, discussing a memorandum of understanding with coming to an agreement with them. There will be future discussions on that, but we have placed a placeholder in this fiscal year budget for $100,000 to be able for the board to be able to move forward with that should they choose to do so. The second noteworthy change is the American Rescue Plan revenues that were added to the general fund as revenue replacement, freeing up monies to be transferred into the capital improvement fund. These were, if you recall, the American Rescue Funds were initially established as their own separate fund because they were required to be. We added $200,383.42 to the general fund, and again, that was to be used to offset salary costs, which is an acceptable way to use those funds, and then it frees up money in that amount to be transferred into the capital improvement fund, which you will see in the following slides that is assigned to future capital improvements. The third change, estimated Onslow County fire tax revenues, which was added to the capital improvement fund. If you recall, in December of 2022, the board entered into an interlocal agreement for fire protection services with Onslow County, and that was for a 3-cent fire tax, which was not a new tax, but it was a tax that Onslow County already bills for that was being redirected to North Topsail Beach to be allowed to be used for expenditures for fire-related expenditures. The amount that we had budgeted for is $471,000, which is what we estimate that we will receive July 30th of 2023. If you recall back in December when we went through that agreement, we vetted that quite a bit to try to come up with that estimate. They originally estimated that the valuation was on $30 million. We landed at $10 million valuation, which equates to the $471,000 that we plugged into the budget, and we estimate again that this will receive our first payment July 30th. So that's been plugged in.
So is there a possibility that, I mean, I know we have to use conservative numbers for our budgeting. Is there a possibility that that may end up being a higher amount that we actually receive?
Yes.
Okay,
It's an estimate, so it could be higher, it could be lower, but we feel if anything, it'll be higher, not lower. we tried to be as conservative as possible. The next item is monies that's allocated for a human resources platform. We plugged an additional $20,500 into administration. This is specifically for training across the board for all staff in areas that customer service, for safety, for employee law issues, so required trainings that everyone should be assigned. This provides for that. It also provides for automating everything that we do. Currently, we don't have any process in place for onboarding. This would all be now through a system. So everything will be tracked, evals, performance evaluations will be documented into this system, and we'll be able to track everything. Any questions on that? I know that was a little bit of a new one, that's something that we have been talking about, that staff has been talking about basically since I came on board. But Caitlin's been very helpful with keeping the ball moving forward with it in the absence of having a dedicated HR person.
Well, and it seems like for quite a while, we've been talking about different education opportunities that we may not be taking advantage of, to townwide with our employees. So this sounds to me like a way to track what is like a resource plan and an education plan. So what you're expecting they're taking, that they actually took it, it doesn't get backburnered and those
Yes.
things. So that's good.
Yeah, it'll be tracked and documented. The next item that we have is an additional 5% increase from the last budget that was presented, so a 10% increase total added to employee insurance based on the first quote we received at the last meeting. We initially, historically, we reported that we've only seen a 3 to 5% increase. However, this last fiscal year, there's been a lot of use in the plan, more so than past years in history for health insurance, which was originally a 20% increase. We got that down to 10%, and we still continue to shop that, so it may go down lower, but this is the worst case increase scenario is 10%. So we plugged that in so that it was a realistic number. The next item is an increase of 5% added to property and liability, workers' compensation, and this is regarding fire insurances while we, again, wait for quotes to come in. Unfortunately, insurance companies with quotes, they don't match, line up with our budget process the way we would like, but so we added 5% for that just to be conservative and safe. The last item, we did a conservative 5% increase for sales and use tax revenues. This was based on looking again at historical data for the last 5 years on what we brought in, and basically we're already, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, 28% over already this fiscal year. So 5% is very conservative with bumping that up again, just trying to be as realistic as possible. Okay.
Take a quick question.
Yeah, if you would like to ask a question on
Just
that previously.
on the last one that you had up there? Sorry. On the last one that you had up there, if you can pop back, Ricky. We're not, on the sales and use tax revenues, I noticed that you're gonna get into contingency increase, right? Because one of the concerns we've had in the past is, knock on wood, a storm comes through, and we could lose a lot of the sales. So do you
Right.
feel pretty confident that with the contingency you're building in here that we can survive something like that?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, we more than doubled
Right.
our contingency for this fiscal year budget, so we're in a very good position going forward and have a very good buffer that both of us feel comfortable with proceeding with.
I just know that as you've been here longer than me, Mayor, and hurricane comes through and things definitely get shooken up. So, and knock on wood, we haven't had one, at least for a little while.
Right.
Knock on wood.
Okay, and I will, as you can see from the summary slides, and I'll turn it over to Caitlin. We went through all these, nothing has really changed. All the differences, you're seeing a balanced budget at this point. And again, assuming the current tax rate of 43 cents per $100 valuation and 26 being assigned to the general fund.
Yeah, the main changes Alice just spoke to, you'll see the numbers reflected here, and that changes the differences over from the prior year. And like Alice just said, the main difference, in my opinion, is it's now a balanced budget. Everything we've presented to you thus far has showed you the surplus that was represented, and then that is now rolled into the contingency, which balances. So I can go through it. We have gone through it prior. Are there questions specifically in any departments?
Well, I would like to approach it that way, Caitlin,
Yeah.
if anybody has any specific questions. Yes, sir.
Just a comment. One is I like the way you put it together. One of the things I think that's a little bit misleading, the inflation rate just came out yesterday at 4.9%. When somebody looks at the 7.5%, they say, the reality is if the contingency was the same as last year, then your expenses increase is about 2-point-something%. So in terms of if you take that piece out, which I think we need to use the contingency like you said, but if you look at what you've been able to do in terms of increases, in a 5% inflation thing, you're talking about increasing your expenses with insurance up and everything up a little over 2%. So I think that's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, and it is a balanced budget as it has to be statutorily. So if our revenues increase, which they have this year, then we also have to balance the budget. So you'll see the expenditures also increase, but that's because it has to match with the revenues. So it has to equal zero.
Any additional questions for Caitlin? Okay.
Okay. So the next slide, we still left that in there, just again representing the items that we are cash flowing this fiscal year. Still pouring money into, not pouring, putting money, excuse me, putting money into the North End Fire Station, fixing out the exterior. We're getting a new dump truck for F450 for Public Works, an enclosed trailer, zero-turn mower, an additional police department vehicle, and then replacing the fire chief's vehicle as well this fiscal year. So those are items we can cash flow, keep out of the capital improvement fund. Just like to highlight that as well. The next slide is the capital improvement fund summary, which has changed from the last workshop that we've had. Like Alice mentioned, we've now represented the fire tax figure and the revenue that will bring in. We have that transfer in from the general fund with the then available revenues that the American Rescue Plan alleviated. So we've got that there. The fire tax monies have to go to fire. So we have that going to the fire department. So you see that line item increased. And then also that bike path possible NCDOT project is now represented. With the additional monies from the general fund, that is your main increase for that future capital improvement fund. Are there any questions in regards to this fund?
Just real quick, estimate what the fund balance would be at the end of next year on this thing, because we've got some large capital projects coming.
Yes.
And interest rates are going through the roof, so.
I do not have that one on the top of my brain. I have a lot of other ones.
My point is you feel
Yes.
pretty good about where we'll be, right?
Yes, because this is our second year, this year, having this fund, so we already have monies saved. We'll have more monies at the end of this fiscal year, so that'll get poured into the fire department, so we're not having to have as big of a debt service for that. We have the loan laid out and upcoming for the fire truck with Jones Onslow, so we feel confident and secure going into this next year. Yes, sir.
And from our last audit, the auditor did note that we were over the percentage that was required, so to speak. So we're, again, in good financial position.
And that's
we'll
specific
be-
for the
and that-
general
and that will-
fund.
For the general fund.
Yes.
And that will increase.
Yes.
Any additional questions for Caitlin on that? Okay, let's keep moving.
All right. The last one here is our shoreline protection fund, the beach fund. Again, the main difference from the last presentation is that it is now a balanced budget. the surplus that was represented is now rolled into this fund's contingency, which we have labeled future projects fund. There's really nothing big noteworthy changes that were specific to this fund. So are there any questions here? Okay, awesome. So
He's thinking,
I thought he was
I
gonna
could
ask fund
tell.
balance. Come on, Mike, you wanna ask fund balance?
So you have to look at this like that future projects. We in the BISAC are planning projects so that we are multiplying this number by 2 or 3, depending upon what state fund or what funding agents we go to. So, we need to think about using this money as a multiplier, the future projects fund, rather than as a one-time only project.
I think we're all in agreement with that, sir. Thanks, Caitlin.
yes,
Keep going.
yes. Our last slide is the remainder of our budget calendar, which is our adoption with the new special meeting that you guys talked about and agreed upon the last time, June 14th at 11 a.m. And you'll see the budget ordinance, the more formal presentation at that time. So if there's no other questions on that, then I think we can move on to the next section.
So what we'll need for the public presentation and hearings is, we need to have a motion to open.
I make a motion that we open the public hearing for the budget workshop.
Do I have a second? A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And again, I'm gonna turn over to Ms. Darian.
Okay. So, again, what we have proposed is the balanced budget, and if you would like us to go through any of the slides, we can do that.
I think we've already gone through the changes, and this will be the third time now with similar slides. So I think from a board perspective, we are good.
And incorporate into the record, then? Incorporate them in the record.
Yes, sir. Were you gonna say something, Alderman Leonard?
Do you open it for public comment at this point?
Yes, if the board doesn't have any questions, I would like to ask if anybody in the audience has any questions regarding the budget. No? Then I think we can make a move to close the public hearing.
I make the motion, we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then since we tabled the continuing business item, then I would like a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone.